Hey, paper lover. I am so excited to be recording this for you today. We are going to be doing a flip through of the brand new Washi Workbook quilt patterns that is coming to the shop this Friday. I am so excited about this design. It was suggested to me by a dear friend. She said, you know what would be really fun is to do a whole book of washi quilt patterns. And I said, say less. I got you. So if you weren't familiar, I have an entire series of Washi Workbook coloring pages. So obviously you can color these with regular color pencils or crayons or whatever, but they were designed with washi in mind, meaning the designs that are placed in this book and the thickness of the lines and the intricacy or the lack of intricacy in the designs is meant to be really easy for you to use your washi with. And some of the designs are actually specifically sized to match the washi that you have in your stash. So that's what I did with this quilted book of patterns. And what you'll see is that every design is either sized to fit a 5, a 10, a 15, or a 20 millimeter washi, which are standard washi sizes. If you're going to go to the craft store or you're just looking in your stash, you probably already have these, but you can also get them at literally any craft store, or you can make whatever you have in your stash work, but they were designed with those in mind. So let's get into it. Let's do a quick little flip through of this coloring book so that you can see what is inside of it. So right off the bat, the cover is a really fun design here, and it's this plus sign, and it is in a 5 millimeter pattern. So this is going to go with the very thin skinny washi. Really fun. This is a roll from Simply Gilded. Obviously you can tell it's got bows all over it. Side, our first design, this is also for a 5 millimeter washi, and I really love this design. All of the designs that you're going to see in here literally came from patterns online. I searched quilt patterns and then I created them in washi sizing. So if this looks like something that you've seen at your grandmother's house, maybe it is. This one's just really fun because the lines kind of weave in and out from each other. So it's going to be really fun to do this one with washi. And again, this is a 5 millimeter design. This next one is a combination of 5, 10, 15, and 20 millimeter. It's kind of more abstract. It gives off like a modernist look, but this will be really fun with a collection of washi. This one is more of a traditional quilted pattern. It's got this 8-pointed star or 4-pointed star, but it's got 8 pieces to the 4 points. And you'll see this pattern replicated a bunch throughout the design of this booklet. But again, this is a 5 millimeter washi design. This one is a 10 millimeter. So that is the next size up. Again, I'm showing you some Simply Gilded washi here, but you can use whatever you've got in your stash. And it is going to fit all of these lines just perfectly, which means very minimal cutting. And you can actually do most of this just using a washi cutter or a credit card or something like that. You don't need a razor blade or anything. So this is in the 10 millimeter, and it's just this really fun chevron pattern. After that, this one came off of a baby blanket or a baby quilt, which is why it has the little heart shape in it. So each of these boxes is 20 millimeter size, and then the heart is a 5 millimeter size. So you can use a combination on this design. This next one is featuring a 10 millimeter design on the 8 pieces of the 4-pointed star, or I guess it is an 8-pointed star. It totally is an 8-pointed star. I don't know why I was saying 4 points before. But this is fun because you can choose whether or not you want to fill in the background or not. That's totally up to you. But the inner stars, those are all going to be a 10 millimeter washi. Another 5 millimeter washi design. This is that same intricate square weave design, but it is not on a black background and it has been tilted sideways. So it definitely gives off different vibes, even though it is the same pattern that you saw earlier. And again, this is a 5 millimeter size. This next one is a 15 millimeter, which I would bet is probably the most common size that most people have in their stash is the 15 millimeter. And so this makes a really nice chunky design. In the B6 size, you're not going to get a ton of pattern repeat with a washi that is this large, but if you go and size up, this design is available in A5 and HP Classic as well, and the HP Classic obviously is much larger, so you get much more real estate to work out the pattern on your paper. After that, we've got this fun diagonal design, and this one again is a 20 millimeters, so you can either do 20 millimeter triangles all throughout, or on the flip side, you can flip a 15 mil and do it this way. It really just depends on how you want to actually play with this pattern. Do you want to run the diagonal lines, or do you want to work within the triangles? So that one's a little fun either or kind of situation. We have another 8-pointed star pattern. This is again giving off that traditional quilt vibe. This one is using a 10 millimeter washi to fill in each of these star points. This is another one in the 10 millimeter. 10 millimeter is kind of my favorite. It's big enough and bulky enough that you can get a lot of pattern on the page, but it is small enough that you can also get a lot of design on the page. So I really love the 10 mil design. And this is, again, that square weave design. I'm obsessed with it, obviously. You're going to see it a couple times. I'm obsessed with this. Obviously, the star pattern you see a lot, and the chevrons come up a couple times. Speaking of the devil, this is the other set of chevrons in this design, and this is a 15 millimeter chevron design. So this one is really going to be really fun to fill in. Then we have some more triangle shapes mixed with hearts. This is a fun, see if I can find the inspiration photos for some of these patterns so that you can see the quilts that they came from. But this is another one that is relying on a 20 millimeter washi chopped up into 4 quadrants and then using negative space to create these little heart shapes on there. This is another one in the 15 millimeter washi, and again, it's that really popular plus sign that you saw on the front of the booklet. It's just in a larger washi size here, and this is another one where you can play with the negative space. So you can, once you fill in the plus signs, you'll end up seeing there's all these squares that are also this size, so you can choose whether you want to fill that in with more washi or leave it white and embrace that negative space. This one here is quite intricate. It is a really detailed version of the 8-pointed star, but it is still that same pattern and vibe that you're seeing throughout. And this one is going to rely on a 5 millimeter washi. Each of these little, I don't even know what you would call these, parallelograms. Each of these little parallelograms, those are all 5 millimeter washi. So you could choose to fill in a whole line of them. You could fill in just one and maybe do a pattern going up and change the colors as you go out. Sky's the limit with this one. This is going to be a really fun one to fill in, although it's definitely going to be a little bit more time consuming. This is another one that's a little bit time consuming, but so worth it and really fun to fill in. It's another one that relies on the 5 millimeter washi, but this one you get the really bold black background, which I think is really nice. We had that in one of our earlier designs as well, this one right here. I really like using the black background. It really makes the washi pop once you've got it all filled in. Another 8-pointed star. This one is relying on a 5 millimeter centerpiece as well as a 5 millimeter border, as well as a 5 millimeter gap between the border. So sky's the limit. You can have fun with how much you do or do not fill in on this design. This is another fun one, pinwheely. This one is relying on a 20 millimeter washi design, filling in all the white triangles. And then speaking of triangles, this one was actually surprisingly, you wouldn't think it would be so hard to design because it seems really simple, but getting the proportion of the triangles just right on this to also still match with a 15 millimeter washi was really difficult. But that's what this is. This lines up with a 15 millimeter washi, so you can create little triangles. You can identify, there's obviously some hexagon shapes in here if you want to play with that. There's some star shapes in here if you want to play with that. So how you color in all these triangles really tells the story that you want to tell with this design. And that, my friends, is the Washi Workbook quilt patterns. I am super excited for this one. It was a labor of love to design. Like I said, every single pattern in here is based off of a real quilted pattern that exists online. And I just think that's a really fun way to create art, is to be inspired by another form of art, because quilting is an art in and of itself. So getting to be able to do some quilting with your favorite washis, well, that's just so fun. So this is the Washi Workbook. As I mentioned, it is now part of of the ever-growing Washi Workbook series. I also have one that is featuring landscapes and patterns, relying heavily on the standard washi sizes. And then I have two that don't rely on washi sizing as much. That is the Floral Faces and the Outfit Designer. But what you will notice is that all of the designs are very simple, which means you can jazz them up with your washi and bring them to life. And the lines that I use are very bold. Why do you want bold lines when you are cutting washi? Well, it makes it easier to see through the washi when you do those fussy cuts. So all of these were really intentionally designed with the thought that you would be using washi to color them in. But of course, you can use any medium of your choice. I just think washi is a really fun way to get creative, and also it's a great way to take things on the go. Since this design doesn't really rely on using any razors to cut, you can truly get away with just using a credit card or something hard against the edge to rip your washi. So you don't even need a razor blade, which makes this a great plain activity. I love bringing this when I travel. So that is the Washi Workbook. I hope you love it as much as I do. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Stay light, stay bright.